join us on the floor. She's industrial engineer in Universidad Politécnica de Valencia. That's it. With a career spanning from R&M, director roles at DS2, Marvel España, and Max Linear, specializing in semiconductor operations and global M&A integration. She spearheaded the creation of the Valencia Silicon Cluster. We spoke yesterday about this cluster too, where she was appointed president in 2023. We have now representing Portugal, Mr. Ivan Prieto González from INL. Mr. Ivan is physicist. Boa tarde, obrigada. Bem-vindo. Seja bem-vindo, ocupe o lugar, como quiser, não faz mal. Mr. Ivan, he is, as I was saying, a physicist in the USC and also PhD specializing in optoelectronics with a background at ETH, Zurich, EMPA, and Swiss Industry, focused on heterogeneous integration. Since July 2025, he manages the micro and nanofabrication facility at INL Braga, leading clean room operations and positioning the facility as a global technological hub. Welcome, bem-vindo. We also have with us today the honor of listening to Mr. Jan Thomas Nicolas. He is Deloitte Southeast Asia representative. Mr. Jan Nicolas, is he with us today? He's an executive director, as I said, of Deloitte. Welcome with us. You don't have to follow the order, just take the seat that you want to. And as I was saying, in Deloitte Consulting for Southwest Asia, he leads the technology sector and the semiconductor consulting practice. He has more than 25 years of consulting experience, having worked in Silicon Valley during the dot-com boom, and focuses on supporting E&E, electronics and electrical, clients in areas such as digital transformation, AI, cybersecurity, and data analytics. In 2023, he took part in the opening of Deloitte SEI Consulting's office in Penang, Malaysia, highlighting his role in the regional semiconductor ecosystem. Welcome. We also have Mr. Braulio Samuel Quintana Sanchez from Cluster Chip Canarias. Mr. Braulio has been head of microelectronics at Celestia TST since September 2024 and has served as manager of the Canary Islands Association. Welcome, Braulio. As the Canary Islands Association of Technology-Based Startups since December 2023, as well as coordinator of the Chip Canarias cluster. He has a background in business administration and law, both from the University of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria. Welcome, Braulio. Thank you for being with us. And in the end, we have also representing the German market, Mr. Stefano Uglich. He combines deep technical expertise with over a decade of strategic leadership in ecosystem management, a former material scientist from TU Dresden specializing in advanced functional ceramics and process development. Stefan bridges the gap between complex AMP, D and industrial application. For the past 10 years, he has served as a project and NAP. Mr. Stefano, please welcome on the floor. Sorry, he was online. Welcome. Do you hear us, Stefano? Hello? Cincy here? Hello. Well, let's start with Maite and follow on with a panel, and I think we will solve this technical problem with Thank you all, and see you in a while.
First of all, thank you, Semi, for inviting me to moderate this table. You cannot hear me either? No. Okay.
Hello?
Hello.
Mine works. Mine works.
Mine works.
Hello. It's just you.
But you hear me, right? This video will not stop because of these audio problems. They will try to solve it. If not, I have a high voice, so I think you will hear me. Thank you for the attendance to be here. I think we have a cultural map here. We have people from Canary, from Portugal, from Malaysia, and also a German representative, if we can finally hear him. One of the first questions that I wanted to place to all of you, it's about the semiconductor supply chain in Europe and how we can strengthen its semiconductor supply without isolating itself. So maybe Ivan, you can first talk about your view on that.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to this roundtable and for the organization in general. Well, regarding the supply chain and the fears that we have about the ecosystem in semiconductors, I would say that I will focus on the positive side, in my opinion. That is that we had to go through a COVID situation to realize as a society that we need the chain. I mean, we need supply chain in our ecosystem. The question is how much necessary it is. Will it saturate? How much do we need in those situations like COVID, or these days, unfortunately, we are living days about wars and stuff. And the question is how much we can be dependent on other ecosystems, right? So to me, it's very positive that Europe as a whole realized that we need to increase our capacity. Let's call it like this, capacity, because we may suffer of shortages, as it happened already, and we are starting to do it. I mean, in my opinion, and this could be the topic of a long discussion, but in my opinion, we are moving, not in the best direction perhaps, but we are learning and we are moving. We are jumping and we are confronting our situations and ideas and goals. So this is the positive side for me.
Thank you, Ivan. Bradley, what do you think? I mean, the target is a challenge because Europe was willing to arrive to 20% of the production in Europe, and we were about 8% of the total production. So let us share your thoughts about that.
Yeah, thank you, Maite, for the difficult question. I think that, we were just discussing this on the backstage. We are living in a quite crazy world at the moment. We were thinking about globalization until a couple of years ago. Now we are thinking about isolation. And I think that's not the best answer for it. For me, for example, being from the Canary Islands, we are already used to isolation, and the solution is cooperation. Absolutely. So let's just stop thinking that we can fight this battle by ourselves in Europe. It doesn't make sense, and I think that we have to carefully think about it. I know there are other countries in the world, it's China, it's the US, thinking in that way, but I think we're not capable of that. As you said, the problem is that Europe is probably a bit late on some things. We can still catch up. There's a lot of work to do, but not by ourselves. And as I said, for example, this, for us, it's an example of cooperation. Having almost 500 people in the Canary Islands in this chip nation, it's an example of cooperation. If we were isolated just here in the middle of the Atlantic, I mean, we would be probably nothing, just 8 islands lost in the middle of the ocean. So, cooperation.
good view there. I think I agree with you. I mean, this is a sector that needs, mainly in Europe, needs to be developed, and it's a moment of cooperation right now here. So I don't know if we solved the technical problems. I don't see Stefan connected. So let's move on with Jan. Jan, I would like to have your view from an Asia perspective about the semiconductors autonomy, how the autonomy is seen in countries in Asia, which is the perspective and
Good question, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me here. Happy to join. So there is no one Asia, and so when we think about this, going down through the list of countries and how they think about autonomy and what they're trying to achieve, first we have to talk about mainland China. And mainland China would like to be autonomous. If you look at the difficulties that they've had with the United States over the last 10 years, it's really shown them that they can't necessarily trust the United States when it comes to IP access or access to product. And so they'd like to build their own capabilities and be very autonomous. And you see that in a few different ways. One is their development of semiconductor capital equipment, where they're investing heavily into building photolithography capacity, thin film capacity, other wafer fab equipment. You're seeing it in the way that they try to stand up national champions, pushing SMIC into more advanced nodes, with Huawei and HiSilicon pushing towards more AI processor technology, standing up YMTC, CXMT in terms of memory. And so they're really pushing for their level of autonomy. And that affects Europe. Interestingly, you would look at that and say, wow, they really want to grow. But in terms of outbound investment from China, they don't appear to be very interested in creating manufacturing capacity or R&D capacity outside of China, because they'd like to keep it inside their own borders. For that reason, they want to be autonomous. And at the same time, for them to be acquisitive and want to invest and take over companies that are outside of China creates regulatory burdens, as you're seeing with the challenge with Nexperia and some of the challenges you've seen with the United States. And so to some extent, they would like to be self-sufficient, and they probably will have to be, because right now it's very difficult for them to interact. So that's China. They're the big player in the region. When we think about Taiwan and what's important to Taiwan, and you're seeing Taiwan make large moves internationally that they historically have not made, especially with TSMC. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to diversify their supply chain risk by having assets that are outside of Taiwan, and also to curry favor with some of their political allies, whether it's the United States or it's Japan, and you're seeing that expansion here into Europe. Interestingly, I was in Taiwan last week and had a chance to speak with some of the people there, and one of the key themes that we ran into over and over is that TSMC has thousands of suppliers, their multi-tier supply chain, and all of them would like to follow TSMC. They would like to go to Arizona. They would like to go to Japan. And I didn't hear anybody talking about Dresden, but I assume they would like to come to Europe as well. And so one of the big challenges is that these are sometimes small and medium enterprises that are niche suppliers into their supply chain. And how do you help those companies from Taiwan in order to create a footprint in Europe or in the US or in Japan? How do you help them to do that? So that's kind of the strategic challenge for Taiwan. The other half of it, when I was talking with the folks at TSMC, they said that one of the big challenges that they had with the investment in the US, the investment in Japan, was internal messaging to the government in Taiwan and to the Taiwanese people to reassure them that TSMC is not leaving, that TSMC still has a strong base in Taiwan, even though they're diversifying. So that's kind of their challenges. How do we diversify supply chain risk? How do we bring our supply base along with us and create new sources of supply in these other geographies? And how do we do it in a way that's acceptable to our government and our people? And then kind of going down through the list, well, Japan, of course, was a major powerhouse in the 80s, 70s, 80s, early 1990s, and they feel that they've lost their way a little bit. And so you're seeing them invest very heavily in Kyushu and also in Rapidus. And they'd like to reclaim what they think is their rightful place in the supply chain. Korea doing very well with is doing very well with high bandwidth memory, but struggling in logic and struggling with foundry services. So Hynix is doing pretty well because of AI, but Samsung not so much. And so they're trying to figure out their place in this new bifurcated world where AI is doing very well and everyone else is muddling along. Going down through to Southeast Asia, there is no one Southeast Asia. So Singapore is heavily incenting new wafer fabs, setting aside new land for wafer fabs, and investing heavily in technology. Malaysia would like to move up market, so it does a lot of commodity back-end manufacturing, and their government is investing in order to drive greater design capability and hoping to get a few more wafer fabs. And Vietnam their government is very aggressive in terms of incentives and trying to bring over new manufacturing. They'd like to have wafer fabs in the next 5 or 6 years. They're pushing some of their domestic companies to invest heavily. So that's kind of like that piece of Asia. And then we have to talk about India. India is really hoping to get on the first step of that ladder. A lot of major chip MNCs have design capability in India, and between the FDI that's coming into India in Gujarat for Micron and also the investment in Tata Electronics, India's really trying to build up that capability. Tata's been very aggressive in stealing away key executives from other chip companies and retiring executives and Indian expatriates from the United States and elsewhere trying to staff up their business in India. So it remains to be seen how that works out. But there's no one Asia. It kind of is this mix of everybody has their own issues that they're trying to work through and how they fit into the overall supply chain.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan, for giving us the picture of all the countries around Asia and which is their plans on development in this sector. I don't know, Stefan, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me too?
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay, so maybe, Stefan, you can share with us your view from Silicon Saxony and how it has been developed in Dresden about all the actions that have been taken to overcome these supply chain constraints and, of course, the fab that you are building there?
Yeah, of course. It's pretty easy, as always in business and companies. If there's money, then the companies follow the flow of money, of course. And there are a lot of investment coming to our region. And that's not only ESMC. All our existing or pre-existing fabs and foundries are investing heavily. So Infineon is building up Global Foundries, X-Fab, Bosch, everyone. And not only the chip manufacturers, but also, and that's the important part in this ecosystem, also suppliers does too. And so the existing ones, doubling their footprint, for example, but also, as Jan mentioned, suppliers from other countries following, for example, the ESMC invest. So some of these suppliers, and we in our region expect around 50 Taiwanese suppliers will come to Dresden over the next 2 to 3 years. We have steadily over the last 12 to 18 months companies visiting the region and looking how they can set up their footprint in our region. Same goes for, as mentioned, for some of the Korean companies, and even we see and feel the influence Jan mentioned from the Vietnamese and Indian companies. So they are strong, but for the last mentioned one, more in the other direction. So not blowing or coming to Europe, to Dresden region, to Saxony, but trying to attract companies and experience to Vietnam and India, for example. So that's quite contrary flow of things. Does it answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, Stefan, thank you. I think that will change. I mean, I don't know if in 5 years we will get to that 20%, but for sure all those actions will effect, right? It's going to be a change in the numbers in Europe.
And okay, so that's I don't want to be the bad guy to bring the message, but you know, everyone is investing heavily, and so if everyone doubles their invest, and we want to double ours in relation to the others, and we would have to quadruple our efforts to get to 20%. So currently, it's more like Europe tries to keep the state we have around 10%. And that's why CHIPS Act number 2 is so necessary. So we have to do way more to really go up to 20%.
That's it. Yeah. So this table is about cooperation, right? And I wanted to ask you about your experience in your different countries. Which have been the programs that so far have helped more on the development of this sector and on the cooperation, either internal in your country or also externally, right? So maybe Ivan, would you like to share your experience? I think maybe you can explain both your your experience while you were in Switzerland and also your experience now in Portugal. Probably both are going to provide color.
It's fine, yeah. So, well, I joined INL five months ago. Previous to that, I spent almost 11 years in Switzerland and Austria. And, well, in my latest time in Switzerland, well, I could learn how the machine works. I mean, universities, research, development, innovation work as a unique machine. They are very well interconnected, and cooperation is intrinsic. From the university, you get super good students that quickly jump into a PhD or into industry directly. There are training programs everywhere, private, public. When I joined INL recently, I found, well, INL, first of all, is a public institution. So there are multiple, many more than what I expected, programs from Europe, also at Portuguese level. I want to raise here the attention that INL is an intergovernmental institution. It's not only Portuguese, because it's based in Portugal, but it's also Spanish. It's founded by the two governments, so it's an Iberian institution. So we could participate into the calls and programs of Spain too, as a Spanish institution. But yeah, in particular, I will refer to, it comes to my mind, two programs that are very fruitful. One is the Competence Center from European call. It's called POEMS. And basically, INL is the coordinator of this program in Portugal. It connects all the network in Portugal. And it's basically the window to Europe to startups in terms of recruiting, training people, even, yeah, all sorts of financial support. We have a lot of expectations from this program. It just started less than a year ago. And yeah, this is a strong program. Then there is another European program called InfraChip. In this one, I participate more closely. And this is purely training and support to small startups and small companies. So basically, in InfraChip, one can apply for example, for a project. If you want to do a small development, develop some recipe to test your devices, you can apply. Then you have a network through Europe with all the clean rooms and labs that you need for this project, and it's 100% supported. There is, I don't recall now the entire budget for this, but it's not very difficult to have access to this. And in addition to that, and this happened actually 2 weeks ago, in our laboratory, we received people from worldwide, from US, from UK, Europe. There were people from Asia too. We give training during 1 week in clean room technologies. They were hands-on doing the work. Also in microscopy, we have microscopy lab with TEM, FIP, and all these sort of high technological devices, tools. And it's very fruitful. People are very happy with this, and so to say, we expand the network, and we are very happy, and users are very happy too. Yeah. This is 2 examples, but yeah, there are more.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you. Jan, maybe you can share some examples that you have been in Asia.
So I mentioned earlier Japan and Kyushu, and I think that's a really great example of how to do this well. So the Japanese government, the Taiwanese government agreed for investment in Kyushu. Now, Japan's trying to rebuild its semiconductor manufacturing industry, really centered on that southern island. And one of their key accomplishments is to get TSMC to invest in 2 wafer fabs in that area. And it's been very successful as a collaboration, not just because of that investment and because of the additional supplier capacity that's moving in, but also because of the training that they're putting in place and the collaboration there. So TSMC is helping to set up engineering programs in several universities in Japan in order to support this, but they're also creating exchange programs from the Japanese universities to universities in Taiwan that are located close to TSMC so that the students who go there can interact with TSMC and learn. So there's an investment by the Japanese government of about $8 billion USD in order to support the manufacturing build out in that region, but also this collaboration between the two to create the talent that they need in order to feed it. And I think that's a great example of how to work together. It works well, not just because of the financial incentives, but also that there's cultural compatibility between the 2 areas. Taiwan is very close to southern Japan, and I don't know how familiar you are with the history, but Japan actually ruled Taiwan for about 50 years before World War II, and it wasn't that they conquered it militarily; it's that they governed it, and so the people there spoke Japanese, and there's still a lot of cultural affinity. Like the Taiwanese generally like the Japanese and vice versa, and so it works culturally for them. It works financially, and they're setting up this great exchange program. So I think that's a good example of how to do it well.
Oh, thank you, Jan. Stefan, maybe you would like to share some of the programs that are better and enforcing the collaboration in Germany?
Oh yes, it's not so different in Germany than what I've been told. Even we are in the same project, so in InfraChip we are partners. Hello, Ivan. But there are similar projects across Europe, not only in Germany. I think it's even the more important thing to look on the European level projects than on the national level projects, because there the cooperation really starts and really is fruitful for all of Europe. And there we have a whole bunch of different kind of projects. It starts, if you like, from projects where the regional ecosystem get support for fostering their cooperation between clusters. So, for example, that's what we are doing since almost 10 years with Silicon Europe, for example. It was also a former European project. But then projects like Ivan mentioned, InfraChip, where small and medium-sized companies get access to research facilities all over Europe, or even that they get money called cascade funding, that that companies from different regions can cooperate in innovative projects, like only 6 months project to development a certain product or service, and something like that brings us forward. And besides these funding projects, it's always a good idea, like Jan told, to look how others are dealing with something like that. So the example of ESMC or TSMC is very great. They are doing it not only, like mentioned, in Japan, they're doing the same thing in Europe, and not based only on Germany or Dresden, but they are also in our neighbor countries in Czechia and in Poland, is the same approach, yeah? Connecting the universities, making exchange efforts for the students and for the employees, and so on. And I think that's a very good model, and we should apply it on certain different levels. The same thing goes for the setup of these investment regions. So thinking not about just putting there some foundry, but also thinking about all the suppliers who should move there. So thinking the infrastructure, thinking about what does it mean if I want to employ suddenly, or in 3 years, 2,000 new talents. They don't come alone. Most come with family. So I have to think about housing, schooling, cultural, sport, and so on. And as soon as I start to think of this whole picture and act accordingly, then I'm pretty much prepared for the future, and then we can compete and stand on eye level with all the other regions.
Thank you.
And I talk about Europe, not only Germany or Dresden or Saxony.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And Braulio, I don't know if you want to add anything about any of the programs in Spain that you think are adding more value.
Well, I was just thinking about it, and I was thinking about failure, and I don't want to talk too much about failure, but I'm just going to mention it and then just a few comments on that. And I think that, I mean, and going back to your first question also, Europe's first problem is regulation and over-regulation. And this, I think, it's a huge handicap that we have against other countries in the world, like the US and China. So, okay, we should cooperate a bit more, but we should be a bit smarter than what we are right now. We have regulations on state aid, funding gap, minimis for the other side. It's completely crazy. While we see others just putting money into our industry and into their ecosystems. So it's very hard to fight in equal conditions when we are not at the moment. So that's a big failure. Can we solve it? Probably we can solve some parts of it, but I mean, we've been living in the last couple of years in Spain, having a lot of money there without being able to actually do anything with it. So I was just thinking about going back a couple of years, seeing some programs that I think worked quite well, and for example, Cátedras Chip or Misiones Chip. For example, for us, that was a very good opportunity. I wish we could have like 10 or 20 Misiones Chip call, but probably it's too late, at least for now, for that. But I think that it's a moment in which we should actually look a bit back and learn about all of those failures, especially when we are trying to know what's happening after June 2026 and everything. Probably there's going to be a lot of support, but if we do the same thing again, it's going to be a failure again. So let's make a success from that failure. And just thinking about that. And regarding the Canary Islands, for example, in which we've had a lot of support from the regional government and the local government, Cabildo de Gran Canaria, since the beginning, we were actually the first region to approve this microelectronics strategy. It's very hard for an autonomous region to actually support an industry like ours. But there are a few mechanisms that it could work. And for example, in the Canaries, we're going to have an instrument. I mean, it's STEP, and probably most of you already know it. Tomorrow, our government will explain a bit more about that. But I think there are a lot of instruments that could really work. We just have to apply them.
Good. Thank you. I cannot more than agree with you. I think both programs, the church and the Misiones, were two examples of successful projects and programs that have been developed during this birthday, and hopefully we can find a way to continue those programs, right, in the future. Just to close this table, I don't want to pass the opportunity to talk about talent, right? We all know that one of the key elements of the sector and key elements for the growth of the companies in semiconductors is the lack of talent. Many actions have been taken and some steps are taken to develop this. So I would like to get your views on how international cooperation help address the global talent shortage in the semiconductors engineering. So maybe, Braulio, you can start this time.
Yeah, I'm going to be quite short, but thank you for this question, because obviously talent is a worldwide problem. And the cooperation, again, it's probably the key solution. And just going to mention a bit what we're doing in the Canary Islands in this sense, because obviously the talent shortage, we've been suffering this since many years ago, and we are trying to foster a bit more people starting STEM careers. We have different programs to do this, but probably for us, for Canary Chip, for the Cluster Chip Canarias and all the companies that are part of the ecosystem, the huge success is, for example, the master's degree that we have started just a couple of months ago, which is, I mean, probably you have this outside from the Canaries, but this is the first dual master's degree in the Canary Islands that we have just started in microelectronics. And it's 3 private companies supporting this. And obviously, I mean, we have 10 students in this first edition. That's a lot for us, obviously. And it's a huge opportunity to start creating that talent, not only in universities, but in companies, and to obviously give them an opportunity. All of those 10 are going to end up working in these 3 companies or the whole, or the other companies in the ecosystem. There's no doubt about it. But there's much more than we can do, obviously.
Yeah. Thank you. Jan, maybe you can share with us your view, and do you think it's possible that there are some kind of international programs between European countries and Asian countries to do this kind of co-development of talent in the semiconductor sector?
Well, I think to a great extent that already happens, but I have a few thoughts on talent. The first one is, it may not feel like it, but Europe is actually better positioned than a lot of places because of the workforce mobility that you have. You have the ability for people to move around to where the jobs are, which is something you don't necessarily have in Asia very easily. Second is that a lot of the challenges that we perceive, every other industry is going through as well. If you talk to the people who do, electric and gas utilities, or the people who do aerospace, they're all saying, half my workforce is going to retire in 10 years, and I don't know how I'm going to replace them. And I think, to a great extent, that's going to happen through automation. It's going to happen through new ways of working, because we simply can't support that. You're competing with every industry to do that. The third is that this is a cultural challenge, and I saw a study maybe a few months ago where they talked about surveys in China. And I don't know if you're familiar, but there is no TikTok in China. TikTok is actually banned in China, and in China, ByteDance has their own short-form video, but it's used for educational purposes. And so when you look at the surveys of children in China, and they ask, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they say, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a scientist. And when you ask people in the US, they say, I want to be a TikTok influencer, or I want to be a YouTube influencer. And so culturally, we've devalued the kind of exciting work that people do in the semiconductor industry, and somehow culturally we need to change that perception and make that more acceptable. And then the last piece of it is that for international collaboration, I think sadly that the state of politics that we see in the Western world right now has moved against workforce mobility from other countries. It's very difficult to move people around right now, very difficult to get visas, and as you can see, I'm originally American, but as you can see in the US, that there's a big backlash against immigration and against foreigners. And I don't think that's going to change soon, And so I think that the collaboration that we have with our, with our colleagues that are in other countries are naturally going to be virtual, because it's going to be more and more difficult to move the people to where the jobs are. Interestingly, we work with global foundries quite a bit in Singapore. And during COVID, they had an interesting problem. So Singapore, as you know, is a very small island. And it's separated from Malaysia by a small body of water, and there's a few bridges that cross. Malaysia is a lot cheaper to live in than Singapore. So a lot of their, and the wafer fabs are in the northern part of Singapore. So a lot of their engineers actually live in Malaysia and commute across the bridge every day, which works out really well right now, but during COVID didn't work at all because it's an international border. And so what GlobalFoundries did was they invested very heavily in remote collaboration, in remote control towers, and set up specific teams to be able to work in Malaysia to control their wafer fab that's in Singapore and let those engineers work remotely. And it worked really well, and so they stood up a team of a few hundred people now in Penang that have the ability to monitor their wafer fabs worldwide and provide engineering support worldwide from that remote location. And I think that you'll see more of that over time, that the collaboration tools have gotten better, that the international connections for information have gotten better, and if you have the ability through AR, VR, or through other collaboration tools to work remotely, that you'll see more of that. And so I think that will help. It won't solve the problem completely, but I think that we're beginning to see the technology to be able to leverage that.
Interesting. Thank you. Stefan, maybe you can answer to this last question about what role do universities and clusters play in fostering this collaboration?
I will come to that, but I just want to add something to what Jan said. I second everything he said, but it's not only about the students. We also have to remind ourselves, for the industry, all the vocational training is on the same level of importance there. So it's not only the cooperation on the university level, but also for the vocational level. And what roles can universities and clusters play there? Of course, a strong role, because how does cooperation takes place usually? It's through the people. And for example, for universities, students, if I enable students to travel during their studies between university in one region to another region, then they learn new peoples to know better and to interact with them, and with some practice, they work with different companies, and after they finish their studies, they have a lot more experience with different people, different ideas, and this is something which is very valuable for the companies, for the future employers of these young people. That's the thing for the younger ones, and in regards to the talent, for the young talents. But our industry does not look necessarily only to young talents. They want talents which are experienced but are still formable, so they can be pushed in a certain way, because each company has their own culture and so on. So something in between, and not fresh from the university, but also not too much into their own tracks. And that can be used for cooperation too. So giving the chance to get to know different working cultures, for example. This can be fostered through cooperation between universities. And the role of clusters there is, they can bridge the exchange between the companies, and especially between the small and medium-sized companies, and that's what's happening by the help of certain European-funded projects. So we have projects in the, or like the mentioned infrastructure project. So there, Ivan told us, people from a company can go to a European research center for a week and get trained there on certain certain things. So, and we as clusters, for example, are in such projects to foster the information spreading about something like that. So we have access to a lot of companies, and we tell them about these kind of possibilities. Because if you don't know what you can do, you won't do it. And another thing is why clusters are so important for the collaboration is because of the cluster level, we can more or less independently connect regions. And by regions, we think about the companies, for example, in Spain and Catalonia or on the Canary Islands, with the companies in Rhône-Alpes or in the Netherlands or in Saxony or in Czech Republic. And as the clusters know their own member companies and actors there, they can help to bring the right people together. And if the right people are together, then I say the magic starts to happen. So that's what the role of universities and clusters are in collaboration. To interconnect everything on the right level, and then if the connections are there, you can work with it.
Thank you, Stefan. Maybe Ivan, you can close with your insights about what needs to be done in terms of creating talent, right? And what is your experience in Portugal?
Yeah, actually, I will answer as a representative of INL because my vision is very much close to what the activities there have been happening. And I refer to the former programs that I mentioned, like InfraChip and Poems. We have others, as I said. It's really, I think that it really is manifold solution because you create a network that is spread around the world, not even local, but we have our network. We have students that have courses in INL and they came to work in Anchor after spending years in US. I mean, I think that we should, a bit in line with what you mentioned before, think of the world as a cooperation place, and in terms of institutions like INL to contribute in the educational endeavor that is the role that we should have. For us, it's a success to, or it should be a success to create programs like this and feed the industry with these students. So yeah, it's manifold problem, but I think we should go in this direction.
Good. Okay, so thank you very much. I think we are over the time that was planned for the table. So I think you can also take the opportunity during the dinner to continue chatting and sharing some of these ideas. So thank you very much for your insights. Thanks, Stefan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a nice evening.
Stay with me just one more minute. Thank you very much, Maite Basete, Ivan Prieto, Jan Thomas Nicolas, Braulio Santana, and Stefan. Danke schön. Danke für Mitnehmen heute mit uns. We deeply appreciate that you're here with us in Gran Canaria. Thanks for your commitment with the project, and that has been a crucial conversation about global collaboration in a world that is both interconnected and increasingly complex. I think that more than competitive, this collaboration can be, I don't know how to say, what you learn in your researches in Europe can be helpful for those researchers in Asia and the other way around. So it's complementary, that's the word I was looking for. So this brings us to the end of the session, and it has been an intense and inspiring second day of CHIPNATION 3. Thank you for your participation also, all of you are there in the seats. I think your curiosity and commitment also for the future of microelectronics has been crucial. We look forward to welcome you again tomorrow, but let me invite you all to the cocktail that will take place at 20:30 this evening. You're all invited to share more moments together and more inspiring themes. And let's see you tomorrow here again in the third day of Chip Nation 3. I hope you have a great evening, and thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.